Right? I hope you do. So the main focus for today, I'll go over me in a minute. So the main focus for today is definitely to understand what the IC is. Um, and then we are going to go into how to start working on the IC. But be aware that it's going to be a 1 hour session and then we should also have a lot of Q&A, like you can ask as many questions as you want. So maybe at maximum, we're talking about a 1.5 hour session. And in a 1 hour session, I cannot go very deep. Okay, I cannot go to explain all the different data types that you can have on different languages and so on. But hopefully, you will understand the architecture. You will already understand the first steps and also how you can start on your local computer or even some cloud environment that I will show how you can start on your own. And then also I'll share some links that you can go deeper into the rabbit hole on how you can actually start coding on the IC. And towards the end, I'm going to talk about career insights. A lot of you, you are students, you're looking for opportunities, let's be very honest. And probably the reason why you came is, can I work for this ecosystem? How can I find a job in this ecosystem? How can I maybe start a startup in this ecosystem? And definitely more towards the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about it and also give some insight what it is like, because sometimes people think that it's just good, but there are some bad parts of it, and I think it's also important that you are aware. Okay, so for today, that's the main focus. Of course, I'm not going to be capable of covering all the topics and not going into very big detail on the workshop, but that's because we only have 1 hour. But I hope that, like, the main purpose is to show you how easy it is first, so that it interests you towards maybe investing more time on it, investing more time for a hackathon, investing more time for a career opportunity, a part-time on it. And hopefully starts to contribute to this ecosystem. Okay. Before I start, a little bit about myself. I'm 35 years old. I'm Tiago. Like, I already have another life in the past, and pretty much on that life, I learned it was full stack, Web2, gone Web3 kind of person. I did a boot camp of 1 week, a Motoko boot camp, about 2 years ago, and then I was already 5 years on a company, being full stack there, and I decided, like, I was looking for a new experience. I did this training, and after it, I decided, wow, this is actually pretty cool. It's a new stack. I was also looking for a new stack to work on, and I've been more towards this ecosystem. And with time, started to do some freelancing. And one of the jobs that I landed was actually to be a tech lead on the Portuguese hub. Then the French hub also appeared. And I've been helping a lot of teams in the ecosystem that we also have relations. We are also now starting to accelerate startups. So we do hackathons, and I'm mostly mentoring on the technical side a little bit, as I'm doing also this workshop, trying to educate and showcase to people how they can actually have a career and startups in this ecosystem. Okay. On a side note, as a personal thing, I also have an Obsidian Tears. I'm part of a team that has a fully decentralized game on chain that is a little bit geek, but I like it. It's a 2D old retro style RPG game that is called Obsidian Tears. Yeah, so before I go into the code, I will show you what the IC is. And actually, I wanted to have a good understanding from the crowd. How many here? I'll maybe stop the presentation just very quick so that I can see you. Could you raise your hands? So let's test. Who here is alive? Okay, can you raise your hands? Are you alive? Anyone is there? Can you raise your hands as a reaction. Okay, so cool. And now stop it. No. And I'm going to ask, how many of you have already coded on the IC or been in a workshop where you have understood about the IC? Okay, already have 4. How can I see the full change layout? Tiled and everyone. Cool. So I'm counting a minority. I'm counting 4 people. Okay, and that's interesting. Okay, so I'll go on the overview then, and I will. Sorry for everyone that already knows about the IC. Maybe you want to do something else for now. I have prepared also a showcase of the IC. And I think it's interesting because when I show you the code, you are going to tell me, Tiago, like, this is what I do every day. Like, this is normal TypeScript. This is normal, like, React. Like, how is this the blockchain? And I think I can only explain you on this first part. Why is it, although it's being compiled to WASM and it looks so easy to code for the IC, why you should be aware that you have a very different operating system running underneath the hood. And you need to be aware that you are going through consensus when you're making these calls. The update calls is going through 13 nodes and stuff like that. Okay. And I think this presentation is more towards that. Let me view full screen. So in a short sentence, because a lot of people ask, what is the IC? What is Internet Computer? I think a really good way that starts a good frame, because the IC is very complex. It has many, many functionalities, many features. But I think a good way for you to see is like it behaves like a decentralized and permissionless cloud. But built on blockchain technology. Try to think like AWS, and maybe you already had some interaction. I know you're just coding, or starting to code, but maybe you already deployed, because I don't know if 42 School has this credits partnership with AWS or with Google Cloud, but usually they do. They allow you guys to deploy a machine for free and play around with a small machine. So try to think that it's the same thing. Like, you're just deploying code to a web server, but on the case of the IC, because it's meant to be decentralized, like the infrastructure to be decentralized, you just deploy the code. You are not, like, the developer is not supposed to be very in small detail care about how is this going to be global, robust? How can this machine scale horizontally or vertical? How can this deal with more requests? Like, you don't need to load balance anything. It's a lot easier, and the way that you pay your bill, be aware that compared to other chains, DIC has the concept of reverse gas model. And what it means is more that it's just like if you are paying to AWS, you're paying the time that you are using. In the case of the IC, you're paying the update calls and the storage that the WASM, this canister, is costing you. And you, the developer, are paying for it, or a community can actually pay for it. On the example that I was giving of the game that I have, like, anyone can pay for that game. They just go open the ICP HUB.com or something like that, and they just write the address of the canister, this web server, and they pay for it. So try to think it's a cloud. It's a decentralized cloud. It behaves a little bit different from AWS, but it should be the same for you to interact with everyone else. okay, in the browser, as I'm going to show you with some examples, okay? Before I continue, already Tom had a few questions. Okay, Steve, what do you mean blockchain and blockchain? Could you talk, Tom? Feel free to talk. What do you mean blockchain and blockchain? Could you clarify? Typo on your slide. Oh, actually it is. Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right. These are all the slides. I've corrected it on the other presentation, on a more recent one. Yeah, it's blockchain. Okay, sorry. Built on blockchain technology. There's a typo there. True. Well catched. So moving on. I think a good perspective is how different generations and how, although this is the crypto industry, how they actually help each other and how they are architecturally very different. So the first generation is definitely Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and a lot of them appear. And if you go to the architecture, they're just solving the double spending problem, and it's a shared database ledger underneath the hood. It's very focused on that, and their purpose is to be a cryptocurrency. It was a purpose of Bitcoin, and it's decentralized. It has store of value, and then it's interesting that Vitalik was frustrated. He was very part of the Bitcoin scene, and he wanted Bitcoin to be kind of a world computer and wanted it to carry logic. You know, it's not just transacting. You wanted to do something more with it, and he wanted to change Bitcoin. He really wanted. He was very frustrated in the beginning, but then out of that frustration, he understood like already it's too much to change the architecture of Bitcoin and so on. So definitely let me build something else that is less risky, and then people start to see if this is actually useful or not. And Ethereum was born. The white paper was born, and so on. So out of that frustration, we have another purpose. And in the case of Ethereum, this second generation of blockchains, the purpose is more you not only have the transaction, but you also have a consequence after that transaction. You do a transaction and then an NFT comes to you. You do a transaction and then you have voting power over something. You kind of receive a token back. You know, you do an ICO and then you have paid in a certain coin, imagine Ethereum, and you received back another token. Okay, so these kind of consequences and also DeFi is the same. Like I'm staking my coin, and then because I'm staking, I'm blocking my value there. I'm locking it there. I am entitled to receive interest later on and stuff like that. So you see, it's always transactions constantly happening on the Ethereum network, and with those transactions have some consequence. Okay, but already this added a lot of really cool stuff. We had ICOs, DeFi, NFTs, stablecoins. Many of these names are familiar to you, and many layers twos, many other blockchains appeared after Ethereum, and but mostly the or even before, like Cardano, for example, started before. But the focus is the same. Like there's some frustration on only having transactions. Let's add logic, and how can we actually make this logic very cheap and very fast and scalable? You know, and many of them deal in different architecture, but they're trying to solve the same problem. Okay, transaction, logic, purpose. Now, the third generation, I think the IC is trying to bring in something new to the Web3 ecosystem. It's a more general purpose blockchain. Try to think it like that, like it's a general compute blockchain. It literally allows you to do anything. It allows you to do transaction logic purpose, cryptocurrency purpose, it allows you to do anything. But because it's more general, it's also, I would say, even more complex. It definitely took more time to be built, and how to actually make it balanced and safe and so on. So it's very much more complex. And also even for the developer, like you can do whatever you want, and sometimes it's risky because on Bitcoin, like that's the behavior. It cannot be changed. It's safe, and some people want to store their value on Bitcoin because it's consistent. Like there's no way that the behavior is going to change. Now on Ethereum, we had already some upgrades, and in the future we'll continue to have upgrades. On the IC, things are changing constantly, all the time. Be aware that there is a new IC version almost every week. Okay, so it has nothing to do. The architecture is meant to be for the general purpose blockchain, a decentralized cloud, much more powerful, much more complex infrastructure around it. And then you ask me, and what does it do? It allows for open services. And by open services, try to think like DAOs, but that's already Ethereum and several other second generation blockchains already have. But in the case of the IC, they are a lot more powerful. Okay. And they can hold everything on chain: code, secrets, API keys, emails. It has random, it has timers, it can, yeah, do a lot more than and a lot cheaper and faster and scalable than a transaction logic purpose that it inevitably limits you how what things you can do. Okay, because of the architecture. Okay, it's more like that. It's not because people don't want it. It's there are some decisions that to avoid them. It's very hard. Okay, that's why I think that there will always be a space for a second generation blockchain and always a space for a first generation blockchain. I think Dogecoin will probably live forever and ever. That's what it is. But a third generation blockchain, it will always be around as well. Like it will add value on their niche. Okay, the same as these other ones were adding value on their niche. And yeah, there's also alternatives. Several people are trying to make things more integrated, but I would say in different, like in the details, the architecture and the way that you are doing stuff is different. Okay, but that's not for this talk. So I hope that for now you already understand that the main purpose of the IC, at least in my personal perspective, is to be the complete, like the completion of Web3. The vision of Web3 is finally possible. That is for a community controlled environment that is fully open, fully transparent, and allowing you to build a fully decentralized ecosystem that you can have fully on-chain dApps, but also data, also external interactions, even with the browser. You can hold secrets like API keys, emails, and you control code, as I'm going to show you in a minute. So the first example that I wanted to bring you, I have, call yourselves, 4 different examples. But the reason why I'm showing all of these examples, if it's too much, please let me know. I could go a lot faster. But the main thing is to expand your mind into what you could be doing in the future. Because I can show you the code, but yeah, I think it's limited. Like, I think what you should also be thinking is what I'm going to code on. And I think a lot of people are going to code the next DeFi. Come on, you on the internet computer, I can actually do a lot more cool stuff. And that's what I want to showcase to you today. Okay, so OpenChat, for example, I think it's one of the most interesting and even successful projects on the IC. Let's go to personal accounts to show you this. OpenChat is a mix of Slack, Discord, Telegram, but 100% decentralized on the servers of these network that, let me actually show you, like there are many nodes, many independent data centers running the code, the WASM that I was talking about. And the idea here is, and also be aware that they have machines are standardized. It's not like me with a simple computer to actually become a node. That's different from many blockchains out there. The IC has decided to maintain consistency so that people can always have this experience of a 2-second finality on the update calls and around 200 to 400 milliseconds on the query call. So pretty much I can load the website, or should be capable of getting like feedback from the canister in very quick time because it's a query call. Let me actually show you that. Network. Yeah. You see, it's even because it's actually free. The query calls are free on the IC for now, because it's cache. It's constantly hitting cache and coming back. And for now, it's free. They're not paying for the bandwidth. But any update call that I make, it's going to be it will have some cost. Okay, and then it needs to have a business model around it. So in case of the Open Chat, they actually have premium account and stuff like that, and monthly base and lifetime payment and so on. But what I wanted to show you is that although here is openchat.app, a normal domain, underneath the hood, this is actually going to the boundary node, and then the boundary node is asking on the canister, like HTTP method, HTTP request method, what should I return? Like these are the inputs, the headers, the if it's a post call, if it's a get call, whatever, return me the response. And it's constantly returning. And the boundary node sends you back. And you know that this is safe, that is coming from the right boundary node, that it was not tampered with because there is a certificate. You can actually be sure that there was no middleman in here and things were encrypted and stuff like that. So it's really cool that you can actually load a website from a canister, from a smart contract on the blockchain. And let me close this. And for example, in the case of OpenChat, you can store messages that I'm talking with people. I can, like the images that I send can be on my canister. Yeah, I wanted to show you, like I have a user ID, like a person has a canister ID, that's I am the only person that is controller, and also the index canister to constantly upgrade stuff. But also the index canister is controlled by the DAO, and OpenChat is a DAO that needs like everyone's approval to do certain actions. Imagine to upgrade the code. And here, for example, is how you can see, many DAOs, that they are almost dead because you go to Snapshot, you go to some of these off-chain voting systems, and they don't vote that frequently. And the reason for that is because they're not relevant, the proposals. Like you cannot do that much with the proposals, to be honest. But on the case of internet computer, not only they are relevant, they are required. Like it needs to. If you want to change any code, you cannot just deploy it. And sometimes you have a hot fix, and it's a little bit worry. But yeah, like that's the cost that you pay. Like if you want to upgrade, you need to update. For example, this is a good case. Like people need to adopt, and hopefully, like people just understand. They can even verify what was on the hash on the GitHub. They can see the code, what is actually was changed, and you can have external reviewers, a bounty program on top of this, and so on. And the main idea here is that a DAO fully controls what is happening, okay? And it's fully transparent. Even if it goes bad, at least someone can go there and check, what's happened. Yeah, so pretty much, I think that's a great start on what the IC is capable of, that I think I showed you. So the other ones should be quicker. let me go back to the presentation. The second one is on Decide AI. So another use case that is not DeFi. This is actually running AI models. We are still a little bit long way to go. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, like we are not already the best place for you to put your AI model because you always need to run through 13 nodes to get the answer from the AI model. And for quick chat with an AI, it's not really the best. Like, you don't want to wait 13 machines to agree on something. So, and also sometimes, actually on the inference, they can be more discrete, like they can always agree on the same thing. But actually, in normal cases on AWS, Google Cloud, and so on, many times, if you ask the same question over and over to OpenChat, sorry, to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, you get a different answer. You know, and the reason for that is because it's not discrete. Like it's just the way that it's running. Normally, it goes other places. So I wanted to show you. It was too fast. So in this demo, you can see she is recording a video. This front end is actually on chain. That's a really cool part. Like it's fully controlled, and it's a canister, and she's recording this experience. And after she stops the recording, it's going to be sent to the backend to a canister, and this canister has an AI model on it. And actually, it's a network of canisters. It's a little bit more complex. But try to think that in the end, the video, it's just an input. Then this input is being processed by an AI model that is recognizing the face. Is actually a human person. And if it is a human person, let me create a hash that is actually unique and store it and create a credential on top of it. And if someone comes here tomorrow or comes here in the next year, the AI model that is discrete will actually arrive to very similar hash. And based on this very similar hash, you can say, no, you're not unique. Like you have come from this recording in the past. So I want to refuse your request to get the credential of being a unique human. And this use case I want to show you because it's worth paying the 13 machines to agree on, because I'm only doing KYC, you know, from time to time, maybe once in this platform. And it's worth it. Like it's worth the robustness, it's worth the secrecy. Like someone recording your face is maybe a little bit sensitive, so it's not reused in whoever is doing the same KYC for another platform or something like that. It's a little bit sensitive information. So definitely you want the safety of the blockchain. Okay. Yeah, and pretty much then she's just showing that she can use the IC on the open chats. On the case of Internet Computer, we have verified credentials already. There is an implementation of decentralized ID. And yeah, that's pretty much how it works. The people can, on open chat, unlock airdrops and stuff like that after they prove that they're human and not a bot. Going back to the presentation. So the other ones I'll be more quick. This is another example of being an AI. So this is actually an address of canister that this AI is stored, and it's very limited because it's for free. You know, doing update calls, and they're still working on having paid versions that people would actually pay to interact with and have bigger models on chain. Yeah, here can you kind of questions I can ask? So the future, and I want you to also get out from here with that perception. A lot of people are talking about AI in the moment, and one of the narratives out there is that the future is not going to be a single model like red eye coming maybe from somewhere with bad intentions that will spy on all of us and be super powerful. Actually, the reality is probably going to be a network of agents that are very specialized, the same as humans. If you think about it, like when an organization wants to grow, they're not going to put more hours into a single human and that's it. No, actually, you end up having teams and then teams of teams and then heads of heads and stuff like that. So in the end, you end up having a structure where you can have a network of decentralized agents. So in the future, something that also is boding well for the internet computer is that we'll probably have a network of canisters, each or many of them deploying their own specialized, very good agents on their very specific areas that can be cheap because they are very good in that small kind of questions. And on those kind of questions, they can be very accurate on what they're doing. Yeah, and in this case, it took a little bit to get the feedback, and she can only answer about this. If I ask something like, how is the weather today? Like, she won't be able to say, okay. And if you go to OpenChat, to ChatGPT, maybe they can do, because they have an agent that is actually connecting to the internet and handling maybe some this kind of information. Okay. Yeah, so I showed you already this example, but it's looking promising, and Alna is about being an agent marketplace on this decentralized potential future. And people can have a developer studio, but can they deploy their own agents and ask for a certain payment? That is still being development, but they can ask in the future for payments. Moving on. Then you have maybe my favorite category, that is about games. And on here, it's also more dynamic on your side. Feel free to just write on your browser thecubetopia.com, and I think you will have a similar experience as me. Try to see how fast that was. I'm going to refresh. That was really fast. And yeah, so people are joining. Hello, hello. Maybe some of you are from this call. And here we are playing, and the cool stuff about it is that the canister, this is an example of Hazel and TypeScript that I was also talking about. It's 3JS. It's very fast, much better than Unity, WebGL. In this case, it's fully TypeScript, so it's 3JS in the front end, Hazel in the back end, storing the save state, storing the user, storing the leaderboard, storing all of this kind of information. And because it's a multiplayer game, and it was very important for it, that's the only thing that is actually not on chain, is the positions of the players. For that, Joey is using DigitalOcean and constantly using a single web server to keep track of all the updates of the positions. Okay, so that's the only thing that is actually not on chain, and the reason for that is because update calls will take a little bit longer, 2 seconds, and that's too much for a position. And also the value of it is very small. Like, why would you pay for a position? It's just a position of a player. Like, it's completely worthless, from the blockchain or value economic perspective. But yeah, so yeah, feel free to play. Someone is already far away. Cool. So going back to the presentation, another example of also update calls. This case is more towards the creator economy kind of example that I think the IC is very well positioned to go. In this case, it's another fully on-chain game, fully decentralized game that can live forever, all these kind of things. But in here, the players can 100% change the game. And it should go through a DAO, okay? But this DAO eventually, imagine that it earns money in the future. That is not happening right now. But imagine that it earns money in the future. You can exactly see who proposed what and what did the person actually interact more and what the algorithm chose, like what scenarios, what text, what images, what races, even avatars did the user speak. And based on the frequency of being used, an algorithm could calculate what is your contribution. And based on your contribution, you could have a share. And this model is very similar to how you have stuff on Roblox, Minecraft, and so many others that have add-ons and created economy on top of it. But the best part is that it doesn't have platform risk. That's the very big difference. You don't have platform risk, and you also it's easier that these actually can live out on its own. Like even if the developers are dead, like it can develop on its own. I think it's really cool that this kind of contribution system and cooperation system could actually live on the IC. Like in theory, it's all there, but it's not so easy. And yeah, so pretty much it's on the roadmap. But for now, you can already change content, and I think it's really cool. And you can go to the DAO and modify game content. You can create after you log in. You can create your proposals. You can request to edit and improve certain proposals, like a certain scenario that you are playing. Yeah, I'm not going to show you. You can explore it on your own. But try to think that it's a decentralized game that can have decentralized contributors and decentralized content, and can, if you do the algorithms right, it can quickly work on top of each other and kind of capitalize on these small gains. And after a while, I don't know, maybe 1 year or 2 years, this is much better than Roblox because it had a huge network of people that were interested in contributing to the game. Um, and that's it. That's actually the last one. This is a practice time. Also for the Q&A, I will be now discussing more Q&A before we go deeper into the code. Feel free to do QR code or just write on your phone or on your computer, icpsavior.com. This is a game, it's a demo game of the IC, and it is going to explain you more features of the IC. You need to kill the trolls and save ICP from trolls and learn along the way some cool information. It's like an educational demo kind of game. And it's fully on chain. Like this one, I know that it has like 60 megabytes. It's very small. It's all game. It was built in like 4 days, by a friend of mine, Temo. And yeah, it's like 60 megabytes. It's not much in storage, and the cost of it, because it's query calls all the time, it's free. It's taking like 2 to 3 euros if I progress it for the entire year. 2 to 3 euros to store a game online. It's just like the domain is more expensive. The domain icpsaver.com is more expensive than the hosting. If you're paying by the second to have a web server machine in any cloud, it's going to cost a lot more. And the big difference of it is that the IC, if you're more technical, maybe you ever heard of serverless functions. And the big gain is that you're actually only costing something when you update the state. Outside of that, it's just storage, and storage is quite cheap. So that's why this game, this specific and static pages, they can be really, really cheap on the IC because it's just deploying it, and then people are just querying it. And as long as the majority of people are just querying, you can have a startup very, very, very cheap, much cheaper than if you would go to AWS and the rest, because yeah, it's just storage. It's not actually processing. But on the other case, if you are doing a lot of update calls and you're like an middleman of constantly updating information, like that can be quite costly because you're constantly checking. And if the information is actually worthless, I don't think that's a good idea to bring it to the blockchain. So don't think that we are going to tokenize the world. Everyone is saying that. And like everything is going to be on the blockchain and everything is going to be decentralized, maybe in 10 years time. But for now, like every niche has their own things that they're very good at. And yeah, if you're making constant low value updates, definitely use AWS, the normal Web2 world, as much as possible. Yeah, I would say. Okay, so I hope that this was a very deep dive. I know that it took a little bit long, but I'm open to have questions. So let's go to the other presentation that has code on it and stuff like that. Questions, please.
Yes, there's some question on the
chat, right?
The chat, yeah.
Okay. Let me actually go
at this one
to the Google Slides one. Exactly. What I'm talking about. Yeah, isn't it cool, Simon? Like, you actually don't, as a developer, like if you're interested in the more deeper routing mechanism and so on, and how they have actually made it, and the decisions of it can be cool, but for the developer, you actually don't even need to worry about it. Like the boundary node is going to make a request. Then the request has a queue, okay, that needs to be processed. And that's where this agent, okay, would come in already on the API part that will need to route what is. So imagine you have an address that I've shown you, for example, the address of Cubetopia or the address of OpenChat. Based on that canister address, he needs to know what is the subnet. Okay, and this subnet is regionally on the globe distributed. Usually the coefficients is it needs to be at least 2 countries or regions away from each other. Okay, the subnet, except if you are in very specific ones. But the application subnets, that's usually the coefficients. It's spread around the regions. So that router needs to know what is the closer to me nodes that I could reach out and request. And then it's going to ask, imagine 13 nodes out of, I think it's actually 13 in total on an application subnet. And they don't need to agree between themselves. There is a signature on top of it that like there's a master key and then each node has a certain key, and they would know when they go back to, imagine they process the response and then they go back. When they go back, the boundary node would know that there's a problem and there was no consensus and ask to retry or ask, other and escalate on the number of nodes that are attempting. But it needs at least 13 confirmations. And then if they fail, the update call, instead of being 2 seconds, it's going to take a little bit longer to actually achieve the consensus on what is the robust answer here. Okay, and then after it reaches consensus, it goes back to the boundary as a like fully signed transaction on the blockchain. Kind of think it like that. It has reached consensus on that specific subnet that has a key of its own, and then after it is capable of replying back to the boundary node signed with that subnet, then the boundary node is going to reply to you with a signature of that subnet. And you can know it because that's how signatures work. Like they're always parts of a certain private key, and they know that this is trustful. I don't know if I answered a little bit, but yeah, that's the way it works. Like a canister is always in a specific subnet. It's not usually across subnets. It's usually on a single subnet, and then it finds the best way to reach out to the nodes, the router, the IC router. And then if you're in a more complex situation, yeah, if you are in a more complex situation where you want, actually there is viral app that is doing that is deploying because they have a lot of canisters. They are doing a lot of videos, a lot of computation in there, and a lot of data as well. So they're more robust. It's not the usual case here, okay? But they have the same logic across subnets. And actually, one of the new things that they're working on is how to make migration very easy across subnets. But it's yeah, for you as a developer, you need to see that you're only responsible for the code. You don't have that much control of the infrastructure. Like it's good for DAOs, it's good for open services, but maybe it's not so good if you want, like you're a big team, you know, you're Facebook, and you want to have much more gritty control of how you're doing load balancing and stuff like that. But if you're a small team, yeah, I think the IC is definitely a great way to start. I hope that answered. Yeah. You shouldn't also if you try to over optimize, things can go sideways on a next upgrade of the IC. Yeah, be a little bit aware of that. Yeah, more questions, please, and feel free to raise your hand if you want to talk. Amazing, I still have 34 people. Oh no, someone already got away. More questions before I start to lose people. Who is ready for some code? Yeah? Can you show me some reactions like thumbs up, thumbs down? How are we? Like, yeah, no problem, Jan. Okay. Cool. Okay. So now I'm going to go through the code. I'm seeing the hours that maybe I need to rush up a little bit. So I'm going to walk in different ways that you can start on the IC. Of course, the best way that I would recommend is to have your local setup. Okay. Oh, Adam, do you want to ask anything? Feel free to ask. I think you raise your hand, Adam. Adam 1, Adam 2. Or maybe it was okay, I've lowered. If anyone has any questions, yeah, feel free to interrupt me, okay? You can even speak on the microphone. I trust you. Yeah, but as I was saying, if you're long-term working, the reality is you will have your local setup and like the node setup that I will show you in a minute. But many people don't want to go over installing a lot of stuff. Yeah, maybe they want to play with Rust, but then they want to kind of destroy it. So I'm going to show you other ways that you can set up your local environment, especially if you're just starting, okay? And then how you can expand, examples on GitHub, and like courses that you can do on the IC, okay? To go much deeper. So the first thing that I wanted to show is playground mode, and I'm going to share the links, okay? How can I? Yeah, maybe I just click on it and then copy paste it. So on the chat, I'll share with you that's this is a workshop, so I really want you to actually open it, okay? And you can pick any project, different projects. So in give me some context. I don't know if you have played with Ethereum, Remix, and this kind of IDEs on the browser. This is a little bit the same thing. It's like the playground for internet computer, and a really good way to learn before you go into Hazel and Rust is actually Motoko, because the keywords are going to be there, like stable, query, update calls, like a lot of the jargon of like stable tree map and hash map, stable hash map. It's kind of uh, jargon that is very on the context of the internet computer. I think it's important to learn first, and then go ahead and brave yourself on TypeScript, because it's a lot easier. And maybe every day you want to be in a more familiar language, and also more library compatible kind of language that you can expand. But I think to start, definitely I recommend Motoko Playground. Okay, and yeah, it can be on the browser. And already this is another example, another demo showcase of what you can do on a simple front end on the IC. In this case, you can go counter or hello world. That would be my recommendation, or calculator there. But if you want to delve into much more complex stuff, like how is it creating other canisters? How is it making calls to an API? Like I want to send an email. You can actually do that on a backend canister that makes an HTTP API call to SendGrid, to NodeMailer, to whatever service that you have subscribed to send a certain email. You can do a lot of stuff, like how do you deal with random, for example? How do you deal with more complex structures, phone book, and so on? So you can always see this kind of stuff. Maybe I'll go with the calculator and show you, and like the main objective is you pick up whatever you want and click on deploy. Okay, do it on your own. Play with the tag. Click install. Already from the message, I didn't show you there, but it is only going to install the code and hold your code for 20 minutes. Okay, this is kind of a rental system where there's a network of canisters that Dfinity is paying for those canisters, and you can rent them on this Motoko Playground automatically. And you can install whatever was in code. Well, it's not completely any code, but most code you can actually deploy. It is safe to deploy there, and it will just install the WASM and run it. Okay, and it's really cool to start. Then after you deploy, congratulations, you already have an UI. They call it Candid UI because Candid is the interface language. Probably you didn't learn this on 42 blockchain. It's more advanced on the distribution systems course. But when you have distribution systems, one of the big problem is how can you, like a web server that is written in Motoko and another web server that is written in Rust communicate with each other, and another one is in TypeScript. How can the data types, talk to each other? They can't. They can't. Maybe you have an HTTP API, but if you do an HTTP API, that's really slow. HTTP is very old. The HTTP protocol is very old. It's not meant for inter-web server communication, okay? So if you want to be fast, you want the data types to be talking with each other, one of the most hard problems that you have, how can I have good interface language? Some people use GraphQL, for example, to solve this, and that's why it rise to prominence, GraphQL. But yeah, like in the case of the IC, you don't have GraphQL. You use for these intercanister messages, you use Candid interface. Candid it has like an int. I'm expecting to receive as input an int, and I'm expecting to return an int. Okay, and how does JavaScript interpret this int? That's part of the CDK that you will have on the front end that will deal with this. Hazel will deal with TypeScript, and Motoko will deal in their own language. But it's already accepting. Like it knows that you will receive something in Candid language and bytes, and then convert it to whatever it's more useful in your specific language. Okay, that's about Candid UI. Let's maybe do some interactions before I show you the code. I want to add two, and I want to still waiting. Okay, added two. And now I want to add, because it's an update call, it takes 2 seconds finality. Now I want to add 3. And it gives me the answer of 5. So the cool stuff is, like, I'm sorry if I'm going too much in detail, but it's really cool how they have solved the threading problem. Like, you have almost a guarantee that it doesn't matter where the messages, like the requests, are coming in the world. It will always go to the same queue. And these 13 nodes will always receive the same order of requests. On the calculator, adding, maybe not adding, but like doing operations of multiply, sum, and then divide, like the order of things is important. So if you want to make sure that all the nodes reach the same consensus and your end state is right, you always need this kind of queue settlement kind of system. It doesn't matter if a boundary node or a certain node received something before. Like, they always know how to wait, and make sure that the order that they are processing the messages is the right one, which I think is really cool. And they can process in the same block hundreds of transactions, which is really cool. Like hundreds of requests can be done of people doing many of these operations, and still it will have the same state all the time, and without any problem. Like, the developer has this guarantee from the network, from the IC, that it will always route to the same queue and the same order. But you could go side detail. You could go in problems if you go across canisters. That no longer is guaranteed. But yeah, across, it's a little bit more complex than what I said. But yeah, yeah, it's cool. Let me maybe show the code. Okay, and this is, for example, the syntax for Motoko. If you look to it, probably it's very similar to TypeScript. Has some familiarity, like the way that you have the functions, you have a func. You don't have a function, but you have a func. You have like a return of the type. So Motoko was a lot inspired on TypeScript, because people are more familiar with JavaScript syntax, but it does, for example, async. A lot of these keywords are the same, but be careful. This is another language, so it won't behave the same way. And one of the things that it's very picky, Motoko, compared to TypeScript, is how you handle nulls. Because nulls create a lot of bugs. It's the $1 billion problem on software engineering, is how to deal with nulls. and it's constantly causing problems everywhere and exceptions everywhere, because you're not expecting to have a null somewhere in there. But yeah, it's very picky. Like Hosborg definitely wanted to solve that problem for the Motoko and ensure that your code, if it passes the compiler, it should work. You shouldn't worry about it. But if it doesn't pass the compiler, already you should have feedback like, this is bad practice, this is bad idea to do this way, and stuff like that. And yeah, some people get really annoyed because the types, it's very strict on what types you're providing. The same as C, if you have experience on C and C++, it's different a NAT 32 from a NAT 64. It's still a NAT. I don't care. But yeah, the truth is that it's going to be very picky. It's going to be very picky on structures. So be aware that is a strongly typed language. But the way that you work, I would say, is relatively similar. Have var, and you have stable var. Okay, in this case, it's not showing, and I want to showcase it. So a lot of people are not aware, but there is variable, like your code, your state can be in the memory side of it, or it can be in this disk equivalent, like the hard disk equivalent. It can be on the stable storage. And I'm going to show you in here on the playground that affecting. So for example, we had added, and it's 5. So if I add 1, it should give me 6, right? So let me do a deploy, because I'm already seeing this is var. Let me do a new deploy. Upgrade. So comparing to Ethereum, these smart contracts were meant and are meant to be upgradable. The order of it, the history of it, it's still known, but it is like, as long as you are the controller, a DAO is a controller, they can upgrade a smart contract. Okay, that's an important difference to the permanent thing of EVM chains. And I did an upgrade. It's deploying and it was installed. Okay, so if I was right and I say add 1, it shouldn't come 6, and it didn't. It returned, like it resetted, like the memory was wiped, because this var is for staying in the memory part, like RAM, let's think it like that, and not the stable part. And when I did the upgrade, it resetted that memory and installed a new code and turned on the machine. Okay, and when it did, the state is no longer the same. That's why it's happening this. So if you want to actually correct this, you would do stable on before it, and yeah, I think it's fine. Previously it was var, so it will, I think, reset. Okay, so let me add 2, and yeah, it resetted because it was var. Now it's stable, and imagine I am doing some change here and I'm pre-deploying it. If I am right, this when I'm adding, it should go to 4, for example. So showcase, so we add 3 and it should be 5. Fingers crossed. It's 5. Cool. I always like when the demos go as I was expecting. So it's a stable var because it's being written in the stable storage. And this is also important for practical reasons. The normal var, like the normal RAM, right now it can only go to 4 gigabytes, which is a lot already, but that's a kind of a maximum of storage for your stable stuff, for your structures, your data structures. But if you go to stable storage, it can go to 400 gigabytes, which is a lot more. You can pretty much don't even worry about ever needing another canister or running out of memory, because 400 gigabytes should be capable of holding any data structure out there. You would need to be very, very popular or be wasting your storage to actually reach that limit. Okay, so and be aware that it's on the roadmap to expand to 500 gigabytes. And after orthogonal persistence, we will have 64. And actually on Motoko, it's already starting to be like that. We will soon have a reality where this can go to the terabytes of memory on the stable side, which is really cool. And also for AI agents, this memory part of the 4 gigabytes, it will no longer be a problem, because with orthogonal persistence, it's actually going to be capable of scaling to the full stable or close to the full stable memory. So you can have an AI agent that is on RAM having towards the hundreds of gigabytes of RAM, terabytes almost of memory to get the responses from the neural network. Yeah, so that's about it. There's a lot more things that I could say, like what is a sync, what is public, what is private, what is like these are query calls. No, these are applet calls. But if I do query, it cannot actually I think it will the compiler will complain. This is only saying that this is not that I'm changing something that is a breaking change on the interface level. Okay. It's actually accepted. Interesting. Add 4. It's adding. Okay. I think it's because if you have a query call and it doesn't change state, it will return back. But have you seen the speed of it? It wasn't like a 200 millisecond finality. It was 2-second finality just as an update call. So something else that the IC also does is to automatically kind of upgrade your call. If you're doing a state change, let me automatically make this an update call and the cost of an update call. Okay, so pretty much this query is only it's useless, and it's pretty much just deceiving someone, because in the end it's behaving as an update call or being upgraded automatically to an upgrade call. Yeah, but usually, actually, I can show. Let me just real quick. So that's it's already complaining. You see, and use identifier. Okay, let me just I want to know what is the current value that is in memory. Imagine that instead of being add, it was like get number. You saw how fast it was? Show it again. No, it's internet speed fast. It's 200 millisecond fast. And that's the experience that you're expected to have on query calls. It's a lot faster to get them. Okay. So I think you're starting to see how the blockchain is working, what is happening underneath the hood. Because if you just learn about code, it's not that hard. Like, of course, Motoko will have new things for you to learn. But if you go to TypeScript, you will see that it's not that hard. But please be aware of the context. This is not just a DigitalOcean or AWS machine. This is actually running on the blockchain. Okay? It has that specific context. And you may run into trouble if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, so going back to the presentation, I don't know if anyone has a specific question of Motoko or a specific question of the playground. If you have, feel free to ask. these slides should be faster. So now it's more towards, now you know how to do Motoko Playground, but it's quite limited on day-to-day development. If you actually want to do a course, I wouldn't recommend you to do it in Motoko Playground, of course. It's good to see the examples, play it a little bit, and fastly iterate on Candid what is happening. But if you want to actually do a course, I would recommend you to do on the cloud, okay? So you don't need to install anything, but it's actually as robust the experience as it will be in a local. So in here, I'm also going to share with you in a minute. So first, I'll show you where you can know more about it, how to install, okay, from the documentation of Internet Computer. And then one of the recommendations that they have for the cloud experience is Gitbot and GitHub Codespaces. Because I have a GitHub account, many of you probably already have a GitHub account. I'm going to share with you this link, okay? This one is for, oh, wrong account. Let me get to the personal. Copy link. And in here, like I have GitHub, and I can easily create my own code space, okay? So I'm going to share with you this link. Feel free to open on your end, on your browser. I hope you're logged into GitHub, or else we can wait a little bit more for you. But it shouldn't be difficult. Like, you just open the link, it's going to show a similar UI to this, and because it's the first time, you need to click create a new one. Okay. And yeah, don't worry about it. It's just the normal stuff. And it's creating, like, let's just wait. Okay. On your end, please also create. It's free, okay? Codespaces for small machines right now, I think it's free for everyone. But if it's not, yeah, let me know. I think it is. And what is happening is that it's creating a virtual machine on their end. It has Docker, and pretty much it's using Gitbot to deploy the image on Docker there. Then it's connecting to your browser slash front ends, and you have a similar experience as if you were in Visual Studio Code. Okay. And after it deploys, it has certain actions that it needs to run. For example, let me install Node. Let me install all the packages out there. Let me start the blockchain in your local, in this machine environment. Yeah, and it's pretty much doing it here on the terminal. Okay. I think now it's finished. I hope it's also on your side it's finished. If you want, with time, you can quickly glance through it, but I'll show you as well. In my case, it has installed. I'm going to do something that you don't necessarily need to do. So in this command, it started already a local replica of the blockchain on this machine, remote machine. But I wanna show you it's running. So I will do dfx stop, pretty much stopping it, and I'll create a new tab and do dfx start. Usually people would say to use backgrounds, but I don't recommend it because it's a lot better if you just open a tab. Because if you do, on the case of Hazel, console log on the backend, or in the case of Motoko, if you do debug print, you will have the logs actually in this tab and not on the one that you did effects, because this is the one that is running the web server, that is running the the local network. Okay, so I'm doing dfx start, and yeah, if there is any console log, it will appear here. Okay. On the other tab, I'm going to do dfx deploy. Okay, for now, and later on, I'm going to explain about identity. That's the last and the hardest, maybe even, topic. So I saved it for the end. Yeah, so pretty much it's already warning that I shouldn't be using the default identity and stuff like that. And also on your end, it will warn you of the same. Okay, but that's normal. And I want to go what it's actually doing when you do dfx deploy. So dfx is a tool, okay, a terminal tool that allows you to interact with the IC on your local machine, but also with the mainnet one. In this case, it's creating the canisters, okay, because I have on my code source 2 canisters, okay, the backend and the front end hello world Motoko example. So it's creating 2 canisters, and after creating, it's building the code, building the canisters, okay, building the front end, building the back end, and after it generates the candid interface language that I was talking about. That is here, and voila, this is candid. Like, what is the different types? What is the different definitions? You know, what exactly data type it is. You don't need to worry about any of this. Like, it's the compiler that is creating this. It's the build of dfx that is creating these files for you. So you don't need to worry at all about interface language at all. So you have this generation of the files. Okay, that's what it's saying. And then after you have the interface and you have the WASM, push it to the canisters, install the WASM in there. So that's what it's doing, installing canisters, install the code for the backend and the front end. And after it has pushed the WASM, it does an action that is very typical of asset canister kind of. So you can have different types of canisters. You can have a Rust canister, you have a Motoko canister, you can have a custom canister, you can have yeah, many things. And also you can have a very popular one that is the asset canister type. And on the asset canister, it has many methods there already by default. dfx already knows how to, if you put on dfx JSON that the front end is of the type assets, it already knows how to deal with it. Like, to make it super easy, like, you just need to have code here. Magic. Have an assets folder, you have a source folder, and somewhere it's going to create something like what is sources, you know, and then push wherever you have told him, like, it's these folders that I want you to push to the asset canister when you have finished installing the WASM. And that's what it does. So after it has installed the asset canister WASM, it's going to call update. I don't know what exactly is the method, like update patch or something like that. And it's going to push the files like as a blob, okay? Because in the end, files are nothing more than just data. So just upload all this amount of data and upload it to the like route, okay? If I go to the front end canister and I do 5icon.ico, I should have as a response this file directly. And the way that web servers work, as many of you already know from Web2, if you have an index HTML, it just renders. It's magic, you know. And then the index HTML, probably somewhere there is a script tag that is asking for the index.js. It's pulling the index.js, and all of that is being handled by the asset canister, okay? And how you upload it, and if you make any change on the files that you are making, you just need to do dfx deploy. It's going to build again, and it's going to push. Okay. After that, it commits, like makes sure that it has finished the batch upgrade. It has finished with 18 operations successfully and considered deployed the canister, and shows you a successful message that you should also have on your end. That is, here are the links for your front end. Now, just code on it. So let's code. So on this case, it's connecting because it's a little bit special. It's a GitHub context. So on the first call, it's going to go in another address, and it's still missing the query parameters that are very important. So you need to copy it. So this is the query parameter of canister ID that you need to pass to that local network, okay? So it can be like that. And if you pass, it will know what canister ID you're talking about, and it will route the way that this local network is operating. Your boundary node, in your local IC replica, it requires you to pass this query parameter, and if you pass, it knows where to go, and it shows. Congrats! This is the front end that is stored in front end. So index HTML. Click me. So let's click. My name is Tiago, and it replies back. Hello, Tiago. Is this just a front-end stuff? No, it's actually going to the backend, to the Motoko backend, to the blockchain, and making an update call, or actually it's a query call, sorry. It's making a query call to get an answer, okay? And how can you know that? It's the second link that I have here. You just copy the full thing, okay? It's normal to have the two parameters. One is what is the canister that you want to interact. This is a special canister it's always there, that is the candid UI. Also on the mainnet, you also have a candid UI that is on the mainnet kind of canister. And then inside of this candid UI, I want to interact with what? With what canister? The ID of the backend canister is this one. Okay, so that's why we are going to replace that in here. And if I am right, it appears. But this is a candid UI of your local, not really local, like your remote canister that you are developing, okay? And in this case, it was Tiago. Let me show something else, like Umi. Hello, Umi. You see? It's very fast because it's a query call. You see? So that showcases how you can develop with a GitHub code space. Very simple. Hello world example, and then you can go from here, okay? If you're doing the Motoko bootcamp, for example, that I will show you in a minute course, this would be my recommended way of doing it, okay? If you want to do an ASL, I don't think there is a GitHub that is being maintained, but maybe you can find one. The IC is constantly changing, so maybe you can also find. Yeah, but that's it. If you wanted to do any change, like let me actually go to the back end. Hello, Sir Madam. Your name is this. And if I do dfx deploy again, sure. It's going to be updating, rebuilding everything, and updating it on the front end. Okay. On ASL, be aware that this is going to be a lot longer because the way that the compiler works and the way that it's generating files and so on, it's longer. But on the case of the Motoko, it's usually very fast. Yeah, and it was Tiago, query, and you see the behavior of the smart contract is already different. You can quickly iterate from here. okay, and yeah, play around with the language and the course, okay. And also you can, because you are in a GitHub, you can save and do some of the cool stuff that yeah, GitHub Spaces has, but for that you can search on your own. Okay, that's it that I wanted to show. Any questions about GitHub Spaces and how you can create a project on the cloud without much hassle? Last one. Should we go? Okay, thank you for being here. Okay, I already lost almost a third of the people. Thank you for those hard ones that have stayed so long. So I promise to be also rewarding towards the end, as I will explain. I'll also be sharing some links. Stay for a little bit longer. The last one that I wanted to show is the real development. If you would actually make this alive and program every day, I would definitely recommend for you to have a local version. I'm going to show Azel because I've been showing Motoko all the time. So this is an example. It's actually cloned from GitHub. Didn't do much change, I think. Yeah, it seems I changed backend server. I have to go to the console log. Actually, let me open the FX start. Okay, it's running on my local machine on port 4943. And if I do the FX deploy, I actually should have maybe play tested this a little bit more, but I hope it will build and work. You never know when you're doing live stuff. A little bit of how this works. So in this case, it was cloned. But if you do, yeah, I think I would definitely recommend you to just clone this. Be aware that there is already, if you do npm update and you upgrade to the latest Azel, already Azel has been changing a lot and been improving a lot, and there are syntax errors, there are syntax issues that you will face. Okay, so don't upgrade to the latest Azel. But if you do npm install after you clone it, it should be fine. And you see, like it's taking longer for Azel to build. But a good thing is that you also have also in Motoko, you can deploy like a web server. That in this case I think it's Way or Turbo. Sorry, this is the declarations. Backend, front end, and it's just using Turbo. I think it's soft also, or maybe related with Voy. Pretty much you have index, and if you are making some changes to React, you can on that web server automatically see the changes. And for that, you should run the command that is on the scripts. But actually, I think it's this one, on the one that is related with the front end. So I need to go to the front end. Is it source? No, it's actually front end. And then, yeah, package is already here. So I can do npm dev or npm starts, one of the two. Sorry, npm run dev. And it creates a different web server. Be careful about it. In this case, it's on the port 3000, okay? But it's ready. It's ready for me to see how the front end is rendering. and here it is. Like I can make changes and live the front end will update. Okay, but that's the normal as Web2 experience. Okay, this is not of Web3. Going back to the, oh my God, it's still building. Hopefully by the end of the session it will finish. Also because Next.js, yeah, that maybe in these more recent versions of Hazel, this is a lot faster. It has a lot of files when it's building, you see, and it just kind of panics, doesn't handle very fast when it's building the compiler and so on, because it needs to convert everything into WASM. Don't forget about it. So yeah, on the back end, okay, in the front end, it just normal node build, and then the compiled JavaScript is sending the assets. But in this case, it's taking longer on the back end, not on the front end. So it's more related with how it's being handled here. But I wanted to show the way that an main file actually is. In here, you would have, this public actor. By the way, actor is canister. It's the agent actor syntax, but it should mimic a canister. Okay. And on TypeScript, you don't have, on Hazel, you don't have this kind of syntax. The way that Jordan has decided to make it is more as seamless and as close to the original Next.js as possible. So this is the syntax for the Express, Hazel, IC, and then this is actually the create server. Yeah, the create server is, I think, directly from Hazel. Is expecting this create server way of doing things. But then it's actually just getting a new app from Express and handling how it starts, how it is constructed. And then after that, you have the routes. Okay. You even have middleware from the framework. That's really cool. But yeah, on a normal situation, you have normal routes like health, get users, and this kind of stuff. And this syntax is exactly the same as if you are on Next.js. And a cool way, a cool workaround, I would say, it's using on a database, create server with a database, and this database, yeah, here it is. It's actually something, I don't know who built it, but it's really nice that it's using kind of SQL for WASM and like on the memory side of it. But every time that you are doing the upgrade to avoid any problems, every time that you're doing the upgrade, it's passing the information to the stable memory and then returning after you have finished the upgrade. So there's the init, but then this load and save. You don't need to worry about database pretty much. It's already taken care of. That's what I mean. And you would have the same look and feel as if the framework was actually interacting with an AWS database. You don't need really to worry that much about database. You just interact with the models the same way as you would interact. So the users model, data source, and so on, the same way as you would be interacting on the normal Next.js. Okay. Okay, we waited a long time. Building the front end and failed for some. Not a controller. Okay, I know why. This is also a good introduction to the next topic, the last topic, that is identity. It's maybe the hardest topic. I was already preparing and showing the default, but in this case, I have deployed it in the past with another account, and it should, like, the controller needs to be the same. It needs to be signing the same thing, or else you don't have permissions to upgrade a canister. Okay, and in my case, it's dfx identity use macdev. That is my account for this one. Hopefully, and just dfx deploy. It won't take as long as it was taking before. And that's it. After it's deploying, it should have the same UI that I've shown you on the other server, okay? I will actually stop the other server so that I don't have any conflicts or any problems. I was also hoping to show you the console log. Yeah, let's see. But I hope it's clear, like, that Hazel has been capable of having a code, and even you can even copy paste from projects out there. You can copy paste from anywhere. You can ask ChatGPT to code for you on TypeScript, and it won't be that wrong. Like, as long as it's not touching on libraries that are harder to parse. For example, I've met some problems when you're parsing images, for example, when you're doing something that is harder on the back end, and yeah, like HTTP calls, it works, the get, but the post, you need to be a little bit more aware of some difficulties there. Yeah, so pretty much it should work in general, but if it doesn't, you need to find a more custom Hazel way of doing things, okay, to solve that part. Yeah, so this one finally finished, and the local experience that you should have is always to be working on this RN27, or maybe this, but local host domain, pretty much. Let me see. Ooh. But it doesn't pass verification. Ah, damn it. I will need to double check why. So Hazel. Strange, because, and you see, like, if we go to the back end of it, it's just interacting, like the post. It's just handling the post and the get requests. That's how Hazel is handling everything. It's very HTTP based, and handling a lot of this underneath the hood to your framework, and you don't need other methods. Like, although you have created the users route, the whatever route, it's always generalizing. It will always be an HTTP request, and let me handle that underneath the hood on Hazel directly, and not on the Candid UI, because it's meant. So Hazel is very good for web only kind of canisters, okay, like this one. And I think that's it. I wanted to show the UI as I was showing the other one. I don't know why it's not working. Yeah, but it should, like the other time that I was playing with it, it was showing the same UI, and I was able to interact and showcase on the other thing the log. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, so let's move on to the last part, that is about dfx identity. Okay, let me also share this with you on the chat. It's not for you to do anything on this call, okay, because having a local setup will take time. Also be aware, I only wanted to say, if you are on Windows, which a lot of people are, if you are on Mac, just follow direct development as I was doing. I have a Mac. But if you are on Windows, you can't do dfx deploy and stuff directly because it's expecting an Unix kind of machine. Also, to be more compatible with WASM and all these WASM libraries, all this compiler and so on, it has the necessity of actually needing a kind of Unix machine. You have two ways of having a Unix machine on a Windows machine. That is to use Docker or to use WSL, that is Windows subtype Linux. Maybe you already have Windows subtype Linux, so feel free to just use it. As long as you have the distribution of Ubuntu, it should work. Just enter into there, make sure that the paths are the right ones. Just do cd home. This, like, many developers have this issue, like they are doing git clone on a path that is a Windows path. On Windows subtype Linux, you shouldn't do that. You should, after you enter into Windows subtype Linux, you should do cd home like that, and create, like, make dir directory of dev, and then inside of this you actually git clone whatever project you want. Okay, that's a much better recommendation that I have for you. Use the path of home that is the Linux paths, okay, or else you're going to be in big trouble and you will have no idea why Node is not working and stuff like that. So yeah, if you do WSL, is that. But a recommended is actually Docker if you're on Windows, because it's only one machine. If this was complex, and Docker can be very hard to go into very different machines, like database and Redis, and then you have your web server, and then you have some other server. Like, it can be complex quite easily. But on the case of the IC, it's just one, like, development environment kind of machine. So, and already this image will come with the same experience as you were having on the remote one. So it will already come with all the node installed packages and VM and so on. So I think it's the most comfortable way to do it. It's just to follow this tutorial and then enter into the specific machine that you have created with Docker, and inside of it do dfx deploy, npm install, the usual. Okay, and yeah, every day you pretty much just do this command, and you interact with it the same way as I was interacting in here. Okay, that's my recommendation if you are on Windows, which many people are. And that's the last thing about it. Last but not least, dfx quick start of dfx identity. So the issue here is that for you to do operations, for you to deploy to Playground, for you to deploy, to manage cycles, for you to deploy on mainnet, you will need an identity. The same as on Ethereum and any other blockchain, you always have authorizations and keys and so on. So in the case of the IC, you have dfx identity. When I started 2 years ago, this was a pain problem. There was a full tutorial, like 1 hour tutorial on how to understand identity so that you don't screw up things. Nowadays, there is a really smart, much better way that is just doing quick start. And quick start is kind of a REPL system where it's just checking what is your identity and what is missing. Does it miss ICP? Let me ask for ICP. Does it miss a wallet to be created? Let me create the wallet. Does it miss something else? Let me create something else. So dfx quick start is like a kind of troubleshooting tool for you to more easy do identity on the IC. Okay, so let me go back to the use default. So your experience also on the machine of, I don't have it open anymore, but on GitHub space, it's going to be the default one. And actually in there, just make sure doesn't get destroyed, or else your identity is going to be destroyed with that machine, okay? And your key, private key. You can also export that. You can find how to export keys and import prem files and so on. But yeah, be aware that don't lose that key if you do on GitHub space. So DFX identity use default. So pretty much you should have the same experience that I'm having. That is quick start. It's going to say, oh, warning, you cannot do. Default identity is not stored securely. You shouldn't be doing this. Do DFX identity new, and then set up something like an account that is, the account that will control certain assets. Okay, it belongs to your computer, but most important part is that it's controlling assets on a certain project. If you want, maybe later, which I would not recommend, but if maybe for some strange reason you want to share your private key with someone else, you can export the PAM file and just send to that person, and no other action to do. But I wouldn't recommend that. Just do DFX add controller and for a while try to go in that direction. But yeah, if someone is carrying on with your project, I have seen it happen. So try to have your identities a little bit grouped by if it's something serious like production serious, always create a new identity for it. Okay, so that also you don't confuse the permissions, and like if it's on production or if it's on your local, and never risk you making changes that you are not expected to change or you are not expecting to change. So yeah, that's my recommendation about names for like identity new, and I'm going to do it. So on this case, I'm going to listen to the warning. I'm going to say no, I don't want to do any imports. I want to do the correct thing. There is DFX identity new bootcamp, for example, that I'm learning something and I just do it. And after I do it, you should have, let me switch because I've already created, and the effects identity use bootcamp. Let me switch to it. By the way, if you want to know if you have created it or not, where you are on, it's just a list, and then you see the star. It means that you are on that identity. Yeah, I'm on bootcamp. Let me do the quick start again. And this should be the experience. It no longer is warning you. This is safe. This is a safe one. And it will ask you to import. I don't want to import anything. But if you don't want to import a wallet, then how am I going to create any real wallet if you don't have any cycles, if you don't have an ICP with you? So that's what it's going to complain about. Like, I need more ICP for you to start to interact with mainnet and start to interact with creating a wallet on the mainnet and stuff like that. So you need to send from an exchange, from swapping that you have, like ICP swap or anything, ICP, and that ICP you need to send to this address, okay, the ledger account. And after you do that, you do DFX quick start again, and it will create for you, okay? It will start to ask you, I'm not going to do it now or else I'll be losing more cycles on useless wallets, but pretty much it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to create a wallet? Yes or no? And after that, are you sure that you want to convert cycles to it? Okay, and it will pretty much convert the cycles. Or it's the other way around, actually. It first asks you to convert the ICP to cycles, and then it will create the wallet. Okay. And then after that, you can do DFX deploy. I see. Imagine that my code is super good. It's not the one that had issues, but it's really good on the local, and I want to deploy it on the IC. The only thing that I need to do is DFX deploy. I see. Okay. And it's going to, actually, I think it's going to build and only after build. Oh, no, it's already complaining. Cool. I don't have cycles to create canisters on the IC. That's what it's complaining about, as expected. I haven't created the wallet. I haven't topped up with new cycles. And that's it. That's how you manage identity, how you create wallets and convert, ICP to cycles so that cycles can be used. It's kind of the gas fee of the IC. It's cycles, trillion cycles, and that's how you would interact. Okay, to deploy stuff on the mainnet, and that's as easy as it is. Like on my first day of the bootcamp, I was already deploying stuff on the mainnet. That was really, really cool. Oh, cool. And that's it. So any questions that you may have? That was my last slide about coding. Any question? Any thumbs up, thumbs down? Was it clear what I explained? Are you still alive? Thanks, Vlad. Yeah, you are the heroes. I should be the one clapping to you. I have no idea how you have held so long. You really want this. Yeah, so I hope that it gives you the foundational steps, on how you can build. Yeah, I will share the video recording. That's also the main goal. Even for me, for future hackathons and so on, I actually wanted to use this recording because I think it's important. Yeah, Elodie?
Yes, so maybe we can do a picture all together if you are okay to
Yep.
put your camera just to share in the 42 ecosystem and the ICP hubs. Yeah, that will be cool.
So the idea is to quickly take a photo and yeah, people know that you were the winners, you were the ones that lasted so long.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the last is, I think the best is the opportunities part that I've saved the last. And I'm going now officially over hours because it was supposed to end at 5. Sorry, guys. Really quick. Having a career on Web3, you should have some considerations. It's not as perfect as maybe people picture it, because especially on the IC, like a lot of these things are starting, and a lot of these things are global. When it's global, some things are going to happen. First, it's not going to be a structured environment. It's not going to be a company that has 10 years of structure, because 10 years ago, there was no Web3 at all. Like, you're probably going into a startup, or your project is related with a startup that is still figuring things out or still growing very fast. So make sure that if you want to go Web3, don't come just for the money. There are other ways. If you are more a person that needs rules to be clear, structured environment, a senior that tells you and supports you all the way, especially if you're a junior person, I would definitely recommend you to go maybe in the beginning to a more structured environment, Web 2 kind of experience, because even 2 years, 3 years on a really good company, of course, there are many kinds of company, but 2 or 3 years of really good Web 2 training, good practices on patterns, good practices on how to actually have a useful, meaningful, without bugs kind of software. Those skills are going to be very important. And on Web3, I don't see it very much because, yeah, everything is kind of startup. You will probably be like on your own doing something, a new project or something like that. So be aware that maybe it's better if you are a little bit more experienced and if you like to learn things on your own. If you are the kind of that is innovative, that is always on the edge and loves to understand new stuff, definitely maybe the Web3 is great for you. You will definitely learn new stack. You will definitely learn and have room for you to evolve in any direction that you want to go because yeah, pretty much there isn't that many people around. So having just ask yourself, like, is this something that I really want to do? Be ready for the second thing that I want you to consider is it's a global workspace. I talk all the time in English, have been helping and talking with people, startups from all over the world, very different time zones, and even within, because sometimes I mix people with hackathons. Sometimes the teams are from same regions, I would say, but still it's remote work. Like it's very hard for you to actually be in the same city, in the same office, you know? So double check if you actually like it, because if you are the very social kind of person, maybe freelance and Web3 kind of world is going to be harder for you. Maybe you want to go to the office and at least 2 or 3 times a week you want to go to the office. You don't want to spend so much hours at your home. In my case, I spend a lot of time in my home. I love it, but that's a bit that is a bit antisocial sometimes. I prefer just to, or at least before I was coding, and I prefer to be on my own. Yeah, so be aware if you really like that. Time zone differences. It's normal that maybe you will need to have meetings later in the day, earlier in the day. But I think that's actually the easiest problem because for a developer, you usually don't have much amount of meetings. English all the time, for sure. If your English is not the best and maybe you want to work on your English before you actually go to a freelance Web3 career because it will always uh, make communication difficult with project owners or with customers. Yeah. It's a global ecosystem, so I would say definitely make sure that you are investing on English. You don't need to have a top. If you're understanding this training, I think your English is already good enough. But if your spoken English and coordination, like comfortable business English, is not so good, yeah, maybe you want to first be better in that capacity. And yeah, if you're okay with all of this, like my main message here is there's a lot of new, really cool opportunities with high growth. That's what I have been feeling. So I was working 5 years on Web2 uh, career. In my previous, it was a competitor to Shopify, like e-commerce platform here from Portugal. And the reality is that the growth, we even had COVID, that was good times for e-commerce, but even that, like the company was growing normal, the industry was growing normal. On the case of Web3, it moves very fast, and that gives you a lot of opportunities. You can go in any direction, and the big chance is that there is no competitors in there. There's plenty of blue ocean opportunities out there, and the reason is because it's fertile soil. It's just what it is. If you I have been contacted by many LinkedIn recruiters that are desperate on trying to find Rust developers. So if you start your career in Web3, and you probably have a really good stack, for example, Rust, you understand about full stack, like you can do front ends, back ends. I have no doubts that in 2 or 3 years you will be earning a lot more than if you would go learning Ruby, Scala, I don't know, .NET on Web2, because there's so many other developers out there that also have that capacity. But good Rust developers, very few. There is a huge demand for it. But also TypeScript. TypeScript is in big demand, but because TypeScript is older, yeah, I would say that it has a lot more developers out there. So definitely big message, a lot of opportunities. How you would go about it? Okay, definitely take a course for you to dive much deeper than this 1 hour and a half session. Go to the Motoko Bootcamp. I'm going to share the link. It's not here. Motoko Bootcamp link. That's, I think, the most comprehensive tutorial of the IC, how it's working. There's a handbook of how the IC works. And yeah, for learning, even if you later on go to TypeScript or Rust, I would definitely recommend to start on Motoko Bootcamp, do a 1 week course of it, do all the challenges, go deeper into this information, and only later on jump into other languages, okay, and learn more complicated things like Rust that has a much bigger learning curve, but also how Rust is for the IC, because then you need to have libraries that are specific on the IC. You'll have errors that are specific to the IC, and stuff like that. But it's the production language. Like if you would do any production project on the IC, it would be probably in Rust. Okay, so then I would recommend after you do the courses, do a hackathon. I will actually show 2 links of good opportunities there for you to learn with mentors, join projects, maybe even, who knows, maybe you stumble upon a really cool idea. There is Leonard here that can talk. Is from 42 Berlin, and he joined the latest hackathon, and he actually, I think he won. Yeah, hey Leonard. And yeah, so definitely that's the next step if you wanted to be working on the ecosystem and be more known, even if you don't continue with your startup. You do networking, and this works a little bit like tribes. And it goes to my second point, like do a lot of networking, because in contrast to Web2, where everything is so at big scale, the demand is so big that there is a lot of tools, everything is prepared for Web2. On the case of Web3, the ecosystems are a little bit specific and new, and it works a lot like tribes. Like people feel a lot more comfortable hiring someone that was referenced from another project, referenced from a hacker, referenced from a meetup that's already someone actually liked to code with that person or talk with that person about technical stuff. So definitely that would be the way to go. You could also try these job lists, but I'm going to confess, I haven't seen much success. I think the best success is actually events. For the IC and for Ethereum and any other blockchain, okay, in Web3. Also, if you want to go alone or you want to go in a team, be aware that it's very common on Web3 that every foundation has grants that are paying for development tooling, standards, or even community grants like the ones that the hub is giving for startups. Okay, so there is definitely money out there that is meant to be invested on developers that want to go full time on their own to do a certain specific project. Okay, and that's on this presentation. Let me quickly go to the links that I wanted to show you. This is the 1 of 1, 2 of 2. So I wanted to share with you 2 good opportunities that I have. also as a prize for you to be in the end of the workshop. So we are organizing in Lisbon AI conference, and you have a promo code that is 75% down on the cost, but a much better one because you're developers is actually the Hacker House that you will get the ticket for free. So this is an event that is just right before Web Summit. So maybe you are looking into already coming to Lisbon for Web Summit or the side events around Web Summit. But in this case, Crypto AI is going to happen Saturday and Sunday, and then on Monday it's Web Summit. So it's going to be on the 9th and 10th of November. And you can come to the Hacker House. I'll be a mentor there. Two other people from other hubs are also joining. And we will have 3 challenges, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And you will always earn prizes. So you will always kind of pay for the effort that you have made of coming to Lisbon so that you can a little bit offset some of the costs. But you will always have food being paid, breakfast being paid. We will also have a free party on Friday night that you're also welcome to attend. So it's going to be a really good moment to network as well. Yeah, so the prices are $50 for the beginner, $100 for the intermediate, and 150 for the advanced. The advanced is to deploy an AI, very small one, AI model on chain. The intermediate one is chain fusion, pretty much using the IC signing transactions on Ethereum. And the first one is just an HTTP out call done in Motoko. The second one is using TypeScript, I'm thinking. And yeah, so these all should be cool. No matter what you want to learn, you should always have a direction to go. And yeah, you will have participation prizes. You just need to submit the challenge and you will get the highest prize. Imagine that you do the basic and the intermediate, you will get the $100 of the intermediate. Okay, it's not accumulated one. But also, if you want to, even before that, to pay for the flight tickets, we are also paying certifications. I've just started, so you should already have your first module done, but now you need to go a little bit deeper. You can pick Motoko, the Motoko bootcamp that I've shared with you. You can also go for TypeScript that is in Dakar or Rust. Okay, these ones they are not so tutorial friendly, as you will see, but the challenge is pretty much deploy your own code on something and make sure that you are doing certain requirements, like I'm updating the users, I am saving, I am mutating, I have a front end, I don't know, some app that can do something and store it in a data structure. It's not very complicated. I would say 2-3 days, full days on it, and you will get the finished certification. You will finish the course. And as soon as you finish the course, you send to me that information. You send to me the GitHub, and I'll put you on and you send me also the USDT address that you want to receive the payment, and I will pass to the invoicing team, and you will receive your money as soon as possible. Okay, and yeah, that's it. So on these paid certifications, it's $100 that we are paying. Okay, it's not per certification; it's one time only. Okay, so pick up which one you want to do. But as soon as you finished it, you get $100. So $100 for this one, and if you do the intermediate one on the Hacker House, you get $200. That already offsets maybe the expenses of coming to Lisbon. Okay, the flight tickets. If you are in Europe, if you're nearby, of course. If you are in Kuala Lumpur, I understand that will be a lot more difficult. But yeah, at least I hope that this is clear, the opportunities that we are giving. If you want to, oh, it's not working? the link. Let me quickly get it to you. Yeah. So I've sent on the chat a link to the courses. And so this is the hacker house that I was talking about. You can register on it, okay? And that's it. Like you register, you are automatically approved to eligible to come. The challenges and yeah, you need to go to about ICP, and in the end, like you can also read and see the video and so on. And in the end, here are the courses that I was talking about. Motoko Bootcamp, you already know. TypeScript, so the link should actually come to this one. TypeScript in DACAD and Rust in DACAD. Okay. Sorry, Rising in this platform. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Actually, not only you have our prize paid certification, but you also have a small prize. In this challenge, it's 3 ICP. That is $20, almost around that. Yeah, but definitely the bigger one will be paid by us. I hope that answered. And I think that was it. The last slide I have is a Linktree, so that you can connect with us more and know about future events. This one is for the French hub. I actually had joined this one because at least you will know the events that we are doing. But be aware that if you go to hubs, if you go to X and then the hubs network account, ICP hubs network account, you will see a huge list of ICP hubs out there. Some hubs are more active than others because some hubs are bigger than others. That's normal. Like different regions have, I wouldn't say capital, but it has different hubs, like the different competencies even to organize stuff. But yeah, we are very active on hackathons, even conference, acceleration of startups. Yeah, so feel free to join us if you want to be for future opportunities. And that's it. This one I had already shared. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks to you guys for staying so long. Yeah, and the main message here is be in the ecosystem. I think a lot of opportunities are coming. I think it's a good time to enter because you always want this curve of 1 year of experience, then maybe 2 years of experience. People start to consider you a senior on a certain ecosystem. And I think if I am right, well, but I'm a little bit suspicious, right? I work for a ICP hub. If I would be hopeful for ICP, but yeah, I think that this is just starting on the ecosystem, on the developer side and the demand side. A lot of open services are going to come out there, and they will need good developers. And if you go to Rust, you don't even need to be on the ICP ecosystem. If ICP ecosystem is not for you, or you try it but then you want to change, Rust is in high demand. So yeah, feel free to go deeper on the courses and create a relationship with the hubs and with other projects. We are here to help you find a way to have a career in the ecosystem or even a startup, who knows.